Hello. Welcome back to Flipping Pages, Stirring Sauces. All praises to the Most High, the Creator, the Ancient of Days, Yahweh, the Giver of Breath. Oh, Ahaya. And I would like to say Tawada and gratitude to all of those of you who have liked, subscribed, shared, and commented. And I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. I don't know what tomorrow might bring, but I got a feeling I'm alive. There must be a reason. I was given one more chance. My heart's still beating. I was buried alive, but I'm still breathing. Shout out to Buju Banton. You are truly an inspiration. And shout out to my sister Denise. You are also an inspiration. Now, if you didn't see part one of Is Friendship Possible After Physical and Emotional Abuse, this is part two. And part two is not going to make any sense to you if you didn't see part one. Where we left off in part one where I was kicked out of the house after my mother hit me with a broomstick. So we're gonna pick it up there. And my mother is a complex woman who found out my phone number and kept calling me, trying to convince me to come home. That was not happening. She sometimes visited me and we would spend hours talking. She would bring me things that she thought that I needed, like sheets, blankets, spoons, pots, etc. She would call me on the weekends and we would spend hours talking. We became close. But there is still a barrier between me and my mother. And that barrier exists to today. And that barrier is a lack of trust on my part. I've never been her first option for anything. And my mother, she has a good heart. She's a kind and gentle person. She is the type of woman that would take the clothes off her back and give it away. But my mom is not always known for making the right decisions, especially when it came to my father. And she had her favorites, and she made it known. She was grooming certain people to take care of her in her old age. And she always talked about it. And what those certain people did is very painful for me to talk about. But had my mother made me or my sister Denise or my sister Heather her first options, things would definitely have turned out differently. And knowing that my mother was vocal about her future plans, and I wasn't even in the running. Um, it caused a barrier and a lack of trust, like I said, on my part, because, as I said, I was never her first option in any decisions that she made, even though her and I were very close. And that special bond that a mother and child feels was never there with my mother because it already existed with my grandmother. And so I'm going to leave that part there. But anyway, she finally convinced me to visit. And I did when I knew that my father was not at home. Eventually, that changed. And slowly, I started visiting when I knew that my father would be home. And as a result, my father and I developed a relationship of trust and honesty. And my father too had his favorite, but there was a reason for that. When you're faced with a doctor telling you there's nothing we can do for her, take her home and make her comfortable because she's going to die, I think that wears on a parent. And so you want to protect that child and do everything to make sure that that child survives. And that is what my dad did. There's no question that my sister Denise was my dad's favorite. And it's not because he didn't love the rest of us. It's because early in her life, he thought that he was going to lose her. And so my dad had to become doctor and nurse my sister back to health. And so I can understand the relationship he had with my sister Denise. I guess he just wanted to protect her. And my sister Denise thought that she was our father's only daddy baby. Because if my dad was to pick me up and say, "Daddy baby," she would make a big fuss about it. "No, I'm your daddy baby." And so I understand that. And my father had a way of touching our foreheads, and there was so much love generated in that touch. And yeah, he would touch our foreheads and rub our foreheads, and you felt the love. It was a different feeling with my mom. Yeah. But anyway, I am the only child of my father's 11 children that he has ever hugged and kissed, who hugged him. And my sister Denise is the only child of his 11 children who has hugged him and have kissed him. That might sound confusing. I don't remember if that was done when we were babies, but I know as adults, Yeah, my sister Denise got a chance to hug my father and kiss my father when he was in the hospital because my mom and my older sister were not being very nice and tried to keep Denise away. Um, so when she had the chance to hug and kiss my father, she did just that, and I am truly happy for her. Um, at my second wedding, my father did hug me and kiss me, and that makes me feel very special. And when I had my own children, he would hug them and kiss them. And I would say in the last 5 years of his life, every time I saw him, I hugged him. I hugged him when I arrived, and I hugged him when I left. And to me, that is very special. Um, and as a result of not growing up with that being a natural thing, I hug and kiss my children every day and tell them that I love them. And I don't know what it is with parents from the Caribbean, why they cannot do what should come naturally. But I think that's changing. I think that's changing, and that's a good thing. So, parents from the Caribbean, hug your children and kiss them and tell them that you love them so that even though they know and they can feel it, there will be no question in their minds, because that was a question in my mind for a very long time. Anyway, when it comes down to it, my dad was a cool guy in his old age. He thought that he failed me as a father, but I don't think so. He made the decisions that he thought were the correct decisions at the time. And a big part of me is happy and grateful that he was such a strict disciplinarian. And we don't come with roadmaps. We don't come with a manual. So parents do what they think is best and what they think is correct for the situation. So I wish I had known that he felt that way, but he didn't tell me. He shared that with my sister Denise, and she shared it with me. I wish he had shared it with me so that I could have released him from that burden. But he's in a much better place now, and I believe that he knows that he didn't fail me as a father. Actually, I can feel his presence right now. Um, yeah, the spirit never dies. And Tawada. Anyway, Neil didn't tell me that he had become a father. His brother did. I didn't say anything to Neil for a while. I wanted him to tell me, but he didn't. And so I told him that I knew. He said he didn't know how to tell me. He thought his daughter, oh, he He brought his daughter to see me one day when she was around 6 months old. Her and I had a ball. She was crawling at the time, and we crawled around on the floor, and she was beautiful then, and she's still beautiful now. Shauna, on the other hand, did everything in her power to take Neil away from me, including befriending me and physically attacking him. It all backfired. She gave me the ammunition to destroy her in Neil's eyes, and I used that ammunition to try to destroy her. I guess you could call it self-defense. And I handed that ammunition over to Neil. He had the power in his hands that I had given to him to socially destroy her, and he gave it back to her. I was upset about it at the time, but looking back, I'm glad he gave it back to her and he didn't use it to destroy her. It's funny how when you're a teenager, all you think about is getting revenge. But when you're an adult and you look back and you realize that just because you could doesn't mean you should. Neil had accidentally left a phone number on the floor in my room, and I called it, only to find out he had another full-time relationship, which started about a year after him and I got involved. Her and I talked for 3 hours, and I told her he was coming over for dinner, and after dinner, I was sending him to her. So I made him dinner. And after dinner, when he lifted up his plate to take it to the kitchen, he saw her number under the plate. And when he saw her number, he was speechless. He looked at the number, he looked at me, and all I said to him was, "Go to her. We're finished." He begged and pleaded, told me that he loved me and he wanted to be with me. He called her to tell her it was over. She threatened to kill herself. I was numb, and I told him to go be with her. He refused. I insisted. And he left to be with her. Not before I got on the phone and told her that he wasn't worth killing herself over. I told her to shape up. No man who's gonna cheat on you or cheat with you is worth killing yourself over. There's no reason at all to kill yourself over anybody. Not over a man, not over a woman, not over anybody. Paul had come back into my life, but we agreed to leave it. We agreed to leave the past in the past and just be friends. Neil did not stop showing up at my place until one day when he showed up at my place unannounced and saw my best friend, Martin, coming out of my room and going to the bathroom. He was stunned and pointed out what was obvious. That was the summer of 2003. And if you watch the reflection segment, you know what happened between my best friend and I. However, Neil and I stayed in touch over the years. And when he met and fell in love with a lovely lady who he wanted to marry, he called to ask me a favor. I invited them over to dinner, where they were welcomed by myself and my husband, Martin. Neil and his lovely fiancée wanted me to be the maid of honor at their wedding. That was hard for me because I was still in love with Neil. As was usual, I buried my personal feelings deep down inside and graciously accepted the honor. I sorted out her dress and the floral arrangements for her wedding. The bride looked wonderful on her wedding day. I wore a green dress. My hair was permed, bouncy, and fell just below my shoulders. Some people didn't recognize me because people were not used to seeing me with my hair down. It was always braided or up or tied up like right now. The preacher was playing in my hair while he was praying for me. I don't think it was anything sexual. I think it is because it was so silky. So he kept sort of like massaging my head. But yeah, when I had a moment alone with Neil, he ran his fingers through my hair and asked if it was real and if it was all mine. I assured him that it was. He didn't try to mess it up like he did the night I was going out to the concert with Paul when he showed up unexpected. And for many years, I thought he had just showed up. And after I did the last segment, it was revealed to me that he didn't just show up. He was called and told that I was going on a date with Paul because I was really excited about going to the concert that night with Paul, and I had shared with my roommates, and one of my roommates made a call to Neil to let Neil know when I was going out and with who I was going out. I learned a long time ago not to trust that person. And I stopped considering her a friend many years ago. But I would like her to know that I hold no malice in my heart against her. People seemed to be obsessed with my hair that day. Quite a few people asked me if they could touch it. Yes, Black women do have beautiful, real hair. And more of us should be proud of what we have naturally. That day, I was freed on so many different levels. I didn't walk down the aisle in front of the bride. I walked behind her and made sure that her dress showed off the beauty from the back. While the dress was beautiful in the front, the real beauty of it was in the back. The moment I handed her off to Neil, something went out of me. I no longer saw Neil as the man that I ached and yearned for. I started seeing him as a brother and her as a sister. I was happy for them, And I was especially happy for him because he had found someone to love and someone to love him. My heart was clean and clear. Neil's mother and sister actually apologized to me for the way that they had treated me when Neil and I were together. They thought that I was a troublemaker, but I wasn't. And yeah, they thought that I had come between Neil and Shauna, and they were very abrupt and bordered on being rude to me whenever I called for Neil. If he wasn't home, it was, "He's not here." And then they would just hang up without saying goodbye. And yeah, that hurt me. But that day I felt vindicated because they realized that I wasn't the little troublemaker they thought I was. And they realized that I wasn't this bitter, wicked person that they thought I was. And so I accepted their apology gracefully. I left the church that day knowing that my own marriage would eventually end because, among other things, I saw the man that I was married to as a brother as well. I felt liberated and free. When I walked into the church that day, my world was moving in slow motion. And the minute I handed Neil off to his bride, it stopped. As it was in the beginning, so shall it be in the end. Some years later, when the marriage got rocky, they put me in the middle. I didn't take sides. I remained neutral. And I told them both the same thing. They still loved each other. And I talked them into getting back together. And then Neil asked a question he should not have asked. And she refused to answer it. And their pride got in the way and caused the entire thing to fall apart. They still remain friends until today. She is one of my only female friends. There was a time when we both lost track of Neil for some years after they got a divorce. Her and I searched for him everywhere but could not find him. When she got married again, I was not her maid of honor, but I took care of her floral arrangements. And on the day she got married was a day I lost my father-in-law from my second marriage. Due to what I think is malpractice, she suffered a stroke and lost use or partial use of some of her limbs. But this man looked past all of that and married her. I wasn't drawn to him. And I found out later that he was a cheating, lazy scoundrel who took advantage of her kindness. One day I was on my way to Plant World to buy some clematis for my front garden when I saw Neil drive by. We waved at each other. He turned around and we met up in the parking lot of Plant World. We exchanged phone numbers. I had moved from North York to Brampton, and he had moved to Mississauga initially, and then to Brampton. We were living 6 to 10 minutes away from each other and never ran into each other. Never saw each other. Never saw each other at the park. Never saw each other at the grocery store. So the entire time we were looking for Neil, he was living 6 to 10 minutes away from me. He had a new wife. They came over for dinner, and she is absolutely beautiful inside and out. She is my other female friend. I remember one night in 2015, I finished work and came outside, locked up the place, and my car wouldn't start. There was a snowstorm. I called home for someone to come and give me a boost, but for some reason, I wasn't getting an answer. By the time I called Neil, it was 1:30 in the morning. And by the time he and his wife arrived, it was 2 a.m. I was running a bakery, and when they arrived, they told me to stay inside the bakery because it was the middle of winter and we were having a snowstorm. Neil and his wife jump-started my car and let it run for a while before they told me that I was good to go. They made sure that I got home safely. The reason I wasn't getting an answer at home is because Ben John, my husband, was getting chemotherapy and the medication had knocked him out. About 4 months ago, Neil asked me to be his guarantor for his passport. Yeah, he was getting a new passport. There's a section on the application that asks, how many years have you known this person? When I told Neil the number of years we have known each other, he was shocked. We have known each other for more than 3/4 of our lives. Our friendship has survived decades because once Neil went into the church, he became a new person. And he sincerely apologized to all of the women who were in his life for all of the pain that he had caused us. Not only did he apologize, but he lived up to those apologies. Neil received an apology from Shauna for all the things she tried to do to me and all the things she did to him. One day she was going through the airport with her and Neil's daughter, and I was given their bags to search and confiscate oversized liquids or anything that was viewed as a threat to the public. She whispered to her daughter, "That is a bleep that stole your daddy." I didn't hear the words. I felt them. I also felt her say, "Oh, shite." I searched her bag and saw that she had a lot of oversized hair products and body lotions, as well as a bottle of water. I gave her the option of drinking her water, closed up her bags, and told her to have a great trip. She seemed sincere when she thanked me. I broke the rules. I knew that she didn't pose a threat to the public, so I allowed her to keep her toiletries. Further, she was the type of person who would cuss you out and then offer or ask you for bus fare. When she died of cancer, Neil and I were at her funeral, watching her pink casket being lowered into the ground. They had spent a lot of time together in the weeks prior to her death, and they had made peace. She also confessed to her daughter that she was the one that kept him away from her. She apologized to her daughter and to Neil. She had put doubts in Neil's mind about me, and she did clear them up before she went to sleep. Their beautiful daughter welcomed me and even hugged me. She's a sweet and beautiful girl. I wish she would hurry up and make Neil a grandfather. She's getting up there in age. I did speak to Paul about 15 years ago. He seemed sort of nervous, like he was hiding something. So I didn't push, and I chose not to contact him again. My big sister told me that he's not the person that I think he is, but the person I know as being kind, gentle, and very respectful to me. And I don't see him any other way. If friendship is possible after physical and emotional abuse, I am living proof that it is. It all depends on how you choose to react and deal with the abuse. Choosing to leave an abusive relationship is always the correct decision to make. You can only help yourself or the abusive individual by removing yourself from the abusive situation. If the individual is sincere about ending the abuse, they will get help and they can stop. Once they prove to you that they have changed for the better, if you want to continue a relationship with them, it is totally your decision to do so. I have met some new friends in the past decade and more recently. Hopefully, 20 years from now, I can look back at them fondly like I look back at the ones I met in my teenage years. Shout out to my sister Denise, who is my oldest friend. Shout out to CW, who is my second oldest friend. Shout out to SPH, my second crush. Shout out to ND, the man who made my world move in slow motion. Shout out to WWG, my first husband. Shout out to LD. Shout out to AD. Shout out to SP. Shout out to AP. Shout out to KAP. Shout out to RP. Shout out to JCB. Shout out to JH. Shout out to MM. MM is a special friend. And I have a spiritual relationship with MM. The spiritual world and the dream world, as well as the physical world, are very real. When I met MM, I recognized his eyes right away. I knew that I didn't know him in this lifetime, but when I looked into his eyes, I knew that our spirits had a special kind of relationship. And I said to him, "You were supposed to show up in June. How come you're showing up in October?" And he said to me, and I asked him what happened in June, why he didn't show up. And he said to me, "I did, but I didn't come inside because something happened and I had to go." And even when we don't speak to each other for a long time, he will visit me in my dreams. He's always wearing white linen. He comes up a path through yellow and white flowers. Yellow represents friendship, and white represents sincerity, innocence. So he comes up this path through yellow and white flowers, and I'm on a wraparound veranda with white curtains blowing. And the curtains are open and they're blowing, and I can see him coming up the path through the flowers. And he comes up the path and he hugs me just like he does when he sees me in real life. And when he comes up onto the veranda, I have his breakfast waiting for him. And I serve him his breakfast. I'm one of the only people he eats from in real life. And that man has asked me to go out and buy him linen, bed linen, and stuff like that. And when I hand these things over to him, he never asks me for a receipt or anything. He just says, "How much did you spend?" And I'll tell him how much I spend, and he'll just hand it over. He never asks for a receipt. He never checks anything. And there's just an understanding between us that there's a trust. There's a trust. I trust him, and he trusts me. And that's the kind of relationship we have. And I feel very comfortable and safe with him. So in this recurring dream, while he eats breakfast, we have conversation. And when I was running my business and he came and bought food, we would have easy conversation while he was eating. And in this recurring dream, after he finishes eating, he thanks me and he kisses my forehead, and then he leaves the same way he came. I usually wake up with the smell of him in my room. "I haven't forgotten about your banana bread. And as soon as I am able to, I will bake your banana breads." You see, the thing about the spirit is the spirit, when you're sleeping, the spirit travels and it goes out there and it collects information. collects information and it comes back. And sometimes the information it collects, it makes you aware of it, because that information can protect you from something that's going to happen in the physical world. And that's why dreams are very important. They're not just random things that happen. Your dreams brings in information that is collected by your spirit, information that you can use in the physical awake world to protect yourself, to guide you, and to help you to make the correct decisions sometimes when you're concerned about what path to take. And I am going to leave it there. And next time I will pick it up with the do's and don'ts in a relationship from the female perspective. I am at peace with myself. I am at peace with my world. And I am at peace with my Creator. And as I've said before, my angels have overlapped their wings and have created a circular wall of protection around me. The Creator is above me and beside me and inside me. I wish you Baruch and Shalom.